Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America, and you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. A great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
On a Wednesday Health Focus, we are turning to body positivity, and we have with us here the White Pine Center for Healing, and Mary Machuga is the executive director. Mary, good to see you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're kind of focusing on body image and so on, but let's drop back for a second, get a little idea about the mission and where the White Pine Center has kind of grown over the last year since we last talked to you.
So White Pine Center has been in existence for 5.5 years now. Mm-hmm. Our mission is to support community members with eating disorders, body image issues, weight stigma, providing supports and services and advocacy for them and their families and the people who care about them. And again, this is a pretty hot topic. There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, where do you think our culture's at with all of this? Because we have like disparate approaches. You still have models that are size zeros that are, lifted up, as the ideal. Then you also have this concept of people that are really having trouble, let's say with weight, for example, that are lifted up, Well, we like to lift up celebrities. I guess that's pretty normal, right? I mean, well, we lift them up or we really tear them down.
That's a good point.
There doesn't seem to be a middle of the road with that. Locally, I see more of a conversation about eating disorders and body image than I did 5 years ago.
Okay.
That being said, we have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. A lot more people understand what eating disorders are and realize that they are not a lifestyle choice. They are complex biopsychosocial diseases, and they can be deadly. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental health issue, aside from opioid abuse.
Wow.
Yeah, someone in this country dies from an eating disorder every 52 minutes. And the top causes of death are cardiac issues and suicide.
That's crazy. You said a mouthful there. A biopsychosocial disorder. That's kind of like the whole gambit. It is physiology, psychology, and social contagions all wrapped up in one.
Yes. And the social aspect of it is really where the body image piece comes in.
Okay.
Research shows that poor body image is a major risk factor for all risky behaviors, whether it's eating disorders and disordered eating, or whether it's substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, violence, especially relational violence. Body image is a major risk factor, poor body images. Conversely, positive body image is a major protective factor against all these things. And it really makes sense if you appreciate your body and everything that your body is doing for you every day. you are more likely to take care of it and not subject it to risky behaviors and be comfortable with yourself. So that's where the research is on that. Body image and eating disorders are really linked. Really the clinical definition of eating disorders includes a body image issue for most of them. Unless you get into, there's one specific eating disorder, ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and that is not so much body image based.
Okay.
That ends up being a fear of food, a fear of swallowing, maybe.
Wow.
We've had children in the past who have maybe had a problem with choking and are afraid to eat, or it's a texture issue.
Is that pretty rare, though?
Not so much as you would think.
Okay.
We've had quite a few clients with ARFID. This past year, there was a couple of articles in mainstream media, and a lot of people then self-diagnose themselves with ARFID, of course.
The TikTok diagnosis.
Yeah, but ARFID is a very real thing, and it is just as serious, but it usually has different underlying issues. So, but eating disorders being biopsychosocial, the social end of that is the body image piece and how it affects you socially.
Let's define terms here. When do you cross into what is a disorder for eating vis-a-vis, you know what, I like the McRib, which is about to come out.
Yeah.
Which it's going to drive a lot of people nuts because they have a love-hate relationship with the McRib. So, I mean, I'm making a joke, but honestly, what crosses into disorder?
Well, as far as the difference between disordered eating and an eating disorder, okay, because a lot of people have disordered eating or an unhealthy relationship with food. I'm not saying unhealthy eating, but an unhealthy relationship with food. Where does that cross over into an eating disorder? Is really, as defined by the DSM, it really is the severity of it and the frequency of it.
Kind of like when we talk about trauma, whether you are able to cope or not cope indicates whether to be more trauma informed. Is that a corollary or not really?
Well, it is, because trauma is a part of this. A lot of times eating disorders is a way to cope.
Okay.
And it can be the only thing in a situation a person can control. Mm-hmm. So they turn to this.
All right. I'm just going to be real transparent here. Growing up Italian, there are emotional connections to food.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mother made pizza every Friday night. I kind of expect pizza on Friday nights. It is a habit. It probably is disordered eating, but it's not an eating disorder necessarily. Or, it's that emotional eating, where's the popcorn when I'm under stress or whatever,
Well, a lot of our prevention programming revolves around body image and around relationships with food.
Okay.
And as far as food is concerned, White Pine Center really aligns with the intuitive eating principles. The intuitive eating program that was developed by 2 registered dietitians in Southern California, and also a group of researchers that were at the University of Melbourne in Australia that put out a program called Confident Body, Confident Child. Mm-hmm. And these 2 programs really align as far as their principles. They have different focuses, but they're very aligned. And the bottom line, as far as what we try to focus on with people, whether it's a prevention program or even with clients, and we do not do food plans with clients, but the idea that foods are not good or bad. Okay, we assign these judgments to food, and food are actually what we need to be eating to keep us alive. That's why we eat, really.
Sure.
So we try to look at food as being more everyday food and sometimes food, depending on what it's doing for you nutritionally. So most of the time, you're going to want to eat things that are more nutritional for you, that are going to give you energy, you know, going to give you fuel to get through the day. And then you have the sometimes foods, which ends up being the things that you really like to eat, you know, that don't have a lot of nutritional value. So, and to look at how much, you know, not to count things, but just to look at trying to eat more everyday foods and fewer sometimes foods, and look at things over a period of a couple of weeks, not an everyday thing, you know, and not counting calories or carbs or restricting food groups, things like that. That's where you get into a more disordered and unhealthy relationship with it.
Interesting.
Well, we have so many food rules.
We do.
You know,
and they keep changing, Mary.
Well, they just keep adding to it. You have another program, but you know, we're all born knowing when we're hungry and when we're full.
That's right.
You know, try to give a bottle to a baby who's full, or try to take a bottle away from a baby who's still hungry. Okay, but once we start eating solid food, all of a sudden we have all these food rules where don't trust your body. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this.
And you're advocating to listen to your body, trust your body.
Yes. Yes.
And that seems that I would think that that's a skill that is lost on the majority of our culture.
It is. It is. It's very lost, and it takes practice. It's a new habit to do that, and a lot of people don't have any idea how to listen to what their body is telling them. And you know, depending on what program we're doing, we actually go through some of that.
Did we used to teach that? I mean, we always talk about the old days when we had home ec, and you know that we actually had, you know, more learning. But it's a common sense thing, isn't it?
It is a common sense thing, and the thing is, we didn't used to have to teach it because there were not all these things out there telling us that we have to have these certain rules and we have to look a certain way. You know, there's always been, you know, body types that are preferred over others.
Right.
But that changes from generation to generation.
Yeah, you know, my mother, she passed this year, but she grew up skinny. So in the 30s, she was the one that was put over to the side to say, what are you doing, not feeding this kid? And my grandfather said, oh, we feed her, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you look at the 30s and you look at the Great Depression.
Of course.
And that would have really, you know, really fed into that.
Yeah, that was a cultural stain.
You also
if you were
look
too
at
skinny,
before antibiotics, being in a larger body size was preferred as far as attracting a mate, because number one, it was assumed you had more money because you have more food available, because you didn't have grocery stores or fast food or restaurants. You know, if you had a working farm, you had more access to food.
Sure.
And you had more money, so you were able to eat more, so that was what was preferred. And you were not as likely to be sick, have dysentery and things like that.
Sure. You say the importance of body image in adolescence is huge, and it has significant impact on mental health and sustainability. So I want you to break this stuff down here. First off, what's the chicken and the egg here? Is it that I have poor mental health and so I have a poor image of my body, or is it vice versa, or can it be either way?
It's really either way, definitely. Poor body image can cause depression, anxiety, feelings of isolation, and also mental health issues can definitely cause one to feel less happy with their body.
Talk about gender here. Is this highly involved with young women and girls vis-a-vis young men and boys?
With body image?
Yeah.
There was a study done last year. It was either USC or UCLA did a study on 8 to 10-year-old girls and boys, showing that boys now have just as high a risk.
Serious?
Yeah, of poor body image.
At 8 to 10? Mm-hmm. What are they concerned about?
Well, they hear it from everywhere. I mean, it is social media, but it's.
But you're not even in puberty, generally speaking.
But
you're
if you hear it, you hear it at home. You hear it with relatives. You know, you hear it with, if you have a family member who is constantly dieting, constantly complaining about how they look, that rubs off on children.
Sure.
You have industries that are making a lot of money off of us being unhappy with our bodies. I mean, look at the diet industry, multi-billion-dollar a year industry, and they rely on repeat customers because you go on a diet. Let's say you want to lose 10 pounds, and you lose the 10 pounds. Then what do? You don't stay on that diet because it's not sustainable. Okay, because you're restricting. So you go off the diet, and eventually you gain the pounds back,
Right.
and maybe a couple more. So then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have any willpower. I'm horrible. So you decide to go on another diet. And the more often you do this, the harder it is to lose weight. It physiologically is harder to lose weight because your body realizes that you are depriving it of nutrients, and your body responds by holding on to everything it can. So your body actually is working against you, dieting and restricting calories and carbs and all this, because your body is saying, no. This is what we need.
You almost have to reboot your metabolism, your metabolic approach. Again, I'm way over my skis on this, but the idea of that serial dieting, it, like you say, it just doesn't work. I'm interested in this concept though. You've got 8 to 10-year-olds with poor body image, and and then you put this data point that 3/4 of America is either overweight or obese, and so you've got unhealthiness throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and it does seem odd, with these juxtapositions on things, but there are all sorts of factors, But you look at their, let's see, I think it is 60% of girls 10 to 12 years old are concerned about their weight. 10 to 12 years old. And because it's coming from everywhere. It's coming from everywhere that you have to be concerned about what you look like. You have to be concerned about what size clothes you wear and all this. So, and it is causing everybody to really focus on food too much. Again, we're supposed to be just eating to live.
Right.
Yeah. And we put all this focus on food. And that can be a lot of fun. I mean, I love to go out and eat, and I love to cook. But we are putting a lot of focus on food. And when you put a lot of focus on something, and if you start to try to restrict something, that's going to make you want more of it. That's going to make you want more of it. So from that aspect, dieting can really work against you also.
Sure.
That and, our food systems are flawed, which can cause a lot of people to not have access to many of the foods that we call the everyday foods that are more nutritional, and more of the sometimes foods, which tend to be, they taste better, they're cheap, they're snack style things like that. So a lot of things enter into this, but the bottom line is now that worldwide, body image has become a global health concern.
Seriously.
It's not just this country. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you have different lifestyles, though. Let's say Italy or in Europe, other parts of Europe, where they, because you generally don't have a car, you're walking to work, it's a much less sedentary lifestyle. And you mentioned technology, and you talk to the educators at our schools in this concept of just being addicted to that phone or addicted to those computers, Minecraft or whatever. The kids aren't moving, adults aren't moving. They're addicted. They're doom scroll on their phones, and so we've just kind of really consciously or unconsciously just gone to a dark place with all of this.
Well, and if you just look at even the visuals on entertainment or games that you're playing, I mean, all these animated things are, what they all look like, and they all look, all the girls, all the women look like Barbie dolls, and all the men look like, big buff Ken dolls,
Right.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, East 5th, next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get on board.
On Wednesdays, generally, we like to stick to a health focus for our primary crucial conversation. So, obliging with us is Mary Machuga. She's the executive director of the White Pine Center for Healing here in Erie. And, you guys at White Pine focus on eating disorders, body image, weight stigma, and I want you to lean in on what you've seen, at least in this current moment that we're in, when it comes to food and eating disorders and weight and body image. What are some of the more effective approaches that you're finding in your clients that are having success?
Well, the number one thing that is really needed to deal with any of this is identifying your underlying issues with it and the underlying reasons that you are using food to cope emotionally, to control. That would be the number one thing, I would say.
Food as control?
Yeah, a lot of times, if a person is undergoing trauma or is in a situation where they just don't have much control over anything in their lives, they can control the food that they eat, or they can control the fact that they just don't eat. That's something that they can control. Okay. So that can lead into things. The other major thing would be to, as we mentioned earlier, was working with someone who can help you learn how to listen to what your body needs, which is more than just nutritionally, but actually listening to what your body needs and where are you feeling different emotions in your body, and paying attention to your emotions, because physiologically we are governed by our emotions. Emotions drive everything, because emotions tell us, is this good for you or is this bad for you? Thinking is great, but it's emotions that drive us and drive our physiology. So the more listening to our emotions in our society is not valued anywhere near as much as our brain power, as far as being able to think. Okay, those are the skills that we that are always really focused on. But being aware of where we are emotionally and being able to work with that is really important for mental health and well-being overall.
Do you see a link of emotional immaturity and having troubles with things like your body and depression and the you know? And when I say emotional immaturity, I mean like that inability to kind of read the room, that inability to know where you're at. That
can have a major impact on really any mental health issue. Being able to identify where you are emotionally and to be able to work through that is very, very powerful in a healing process.
And where do people get those skills? Because, again, I'm promoting something here is that we have a lot of folks that are walking around that are emotionally immature, that they're still in adults that are act emotionally as if they're still in middle school, that it's transactional that way.
Yeah.
And it just makes me wonder if this all this stuff feeds into each other.
Well, I think it probably does. And, there are all sorts of things that people do to try to cope with all this. I mean, you can be someone who deals with things by going outside and exercising, by hiking, by doing things like that, meditating, doing yoga, anything that is body-centered, where you're actually paying attention to what your body is doing and what your body is doing for you. Programs like, intuitive eating and things like that, which are really looking at why do we have all these rules? Why do we have all these external things that are bombarding us with things that should be just physiological needs?
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of different ways to deal with it. Obviously, seeing a mental health professional, can be very effective also. But there are a lot of different, ways to do this. Being part of a good support group for whatever is bothering you can be good. Just to be able to bounce things off of each other is sometimes a really good thing.
Talk about some of the assets that the White Pine Center would bring to people that are navigating these waters here.
Well, this past year, we have transitioned out of providing direct clinical care because of the overwhelming need for our services. We can help many more people by becoming a resource center and providing lists of clinicians that do treat these issues.
And what's that look like in Erie? I mean, is there not? I'm sure there's never adequate enough people, but is there group stuff happening? Let's say at Mill Creek Community or in other places.
We're working on that.
Okay. Because they're kind of known. LECOM is kind of known as one of those great places for mental health, right? Especially inpatient.
Yeah.
They just built a ward at St. Vincent's as well, not long ago. There's a lot going on, yet, for some of the higher practitioners, we have a shortage, just like every other community in the country, right?
Yeah. And there are more mental health professionals in the area now than there were 5 years ago.
Okay.
That know how to treat eating disorders. But there are nowhere near enough people who actually have some training and some knowledge, because treating eating disorders is a bit of a different animal than treating depression or anxiety or other mental health issues. And depression and anxiety often come along with eating disorders.
I wanted to ask you what the workflow is, because again, what I've heard from folks in the psychology business is that your first line of defense is your primary care physician. Are you going to get a flag? Is there something on the standard annual checkup or whatever that's going to flag that PCP to say, hey, maybe you need, we notice that you're losing a lot of weight these days, or boy, you're picking up a bunch of pounds. Maybe you need to get to the gym. But you want it to be more than that, right? I mean,
well, if medical people would do that across the board, that would be great. There are a lot of medical professionals in the area who do know how to diagnose and how to look for this. There are a lot of people out there, though, that still think it's a lifestyle choice, or it doesn't matter, or that it only affects young white females, for example, which is not the case at all. I mean, eating disorders can affect anybody at any age. They're really equal opportunity diseases. Education for the medical community and education for the mental health community is key. There really are no standard programs for training in eating disorders. There is
globally?
Oh no, globally there are.
Okay.
For instance, Australia has a pretty good national program of training that they have developed. Australia is a lot smaller country than we are.
But you're saying in the States we don't have a
there's
standard
not a
operating procedure for.
No.
Okay.
No, there is an international group that provides training. There's the International Association of Eating Disorder Professionals that does provide really comprehensive training. The one registered dietitian that we were working with when we were providing direct clinical services is a certified eating disorder professional.
Okay.
They're hard to find. That's a long training,
sure.
and it goes on top of your certifications or your licensing training. So if you're a licensed professional counselor, if you're an LPC, you've already gone through thousands of hours of supervision and your exams, and then you have to do this other training. It would be nice to have basic training in these programs, whether it's in mental health professionals or whether it's medical professionals.
I was going to say primary care seems like it would be a thing.
And pediatricians, yeah.
You're all about preventing the disorders, or to bring people back to wholeness at White Pine Center for Healing here. Talk about what's coming up, because I don't want to lose a moment here. Giving Tuesday is important to you guys, and so on.
Well, we have really transitioned. As I said, clinically, we have become a resource center, and we have a list of clinicians in the area on our website. So we are really trying to help more people by doing that, and help people in a larger area.
Are you kind of transitioning to becoming more of a communications outlet to for public health kind of thing? You think that's part of your mission?
It is part of it. It is part of it. Still doing a lot of work in person here in the area. We present prevention programs to a lot of area schools.
What's the typical audience? Are you going to middle school? Are you going to high school? Both?
All levels.
Yeah.
First grade.
Wow.
Up through university. Well, most of these prevention programs do focus on the body image piece, and as we talked about earlier, research shows that kids 8 to 10 years old are having issues with this, and this is where it starts, and even younger than this. We did a session at a local school last year, and I think it was 4th grade, and one of the school staff members in the room was the mother of one of the 4th graders, and we had a little worksheet that we had the students doing, and her daughter had a problem filling out this worksheet, and she said to us afterwards, she said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for this." She said, "I had no idea we even had a problem."
Yeah, I want to lean on that for a second because it occurs to me on the eating disorder side and maybe the body image side as well. I'm sure it is. Family attitudes, and you mentioned this before, but you see these reality shows, and I know that's not real, but a lot of it's real. The idea that so much of, let's say, overeating or obesity comes from maybe you have a kid that had some problems, and so the mother or the caregiver is just helping them medicate with food. I mean, my 600-pound whatever,
Well, sure. I mean, you have a lot of cultures that food is love.
Mm-hmm.
You have the big Sunday dinner that everybody comes. It's like, oh, have a
So
second.
what would you tell a parent or a caregiver about how do you get this right?
Well, there are resources out there that we are presenting in person at this point. That
Okay.
we are now in the process of converting into online resources, so that because we can't present to everybody.
Yeah.
And so that people can have access to these resources. And again, it goes back to being comfortable with who you are and what your body is. We're part of nature, and we don't look at nature and say, all trees should look the same. Or an oak tree is better than an apple tree because an apple tree is short and wider, and an oak tree is nice and tall, and so we don't we appreciate diversity in nature, but we don't in ourselves. We have all these rules that we're supposed to live by, whether it's what our bodies look like, what we eat, what we do with this and that. So it's really, a lot of it is getting back to listening to yourself and really sitting down and thinking about, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But it's really hard because this has been a multi-generational thing.
Sure.
We all grew up in houses where, people were dieting all the time and, doing a lot of smoking at that time, because smoking can contribute to weight loss, and taking pills because that, back, so this goes back generations.
Yeah,
And it's
I remember the girls in high school taking the Nutri Slim or whatever, the little pills.
Yeah. And now it's become normalized, and that's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so many more people with eating disorders now. It's estimated that 30 million Americans will have an eating disorder at some point in their lives. And those are just the people that are getting diagnosed. But also the body image piece has become a really, really bigger part of the puzzle.
All right. So bringing this plane in for a landing for White Pine Center, what do you hope folks walk away from this conversation with, as far as, kind of being empowered? You want people to be empowered with the direction of their lives, or the direction of how they're thinking about food and about their bodies and so on, right? I mean,
yeah. There are a lot of resources out there that you can look at. There are some good programs, especially for children. There are a couple of good websites in this country that we have listed on our website. We have links to them. And, we are, as I said, we are in the process of converting a lot of our trainings and our information onto, a web platform and also social media, because we can reach a lot more people that way.
Sure.
And, people access things in different ways. Some people like in person, some people would rather just, watch something at home at their own, in their own time. So we're trying to make this available to more people, and whether people are in a school system where we happen to be able to present, or whether they're in a school where we're not there, that they have access. We are looking at training the trainers in schools, so that schools can actually do this on their own and not have to have us come in, because we can only get to so many schools. And it's the same thing. We have a big initiative that's starting the first of the year with veterans and active military to try to provide more services to them. The eating disorder rate in the active military is twice the rate of the general public.
Shocking.
For a lot of reasons.
Well, you know, some of their training, it doesn't lend itself to highly, you know, regular meals. I mean, when you're in Ranger school training or whatever, and you're only supposed to eat 5,000 calories within 2 hours.
Right.
And then you don't eat.
Right. And both of my sons were in the military, and my one son was a Ranger. So, it teaches restriction. In the military, you have to be fit.
Sure.
You know, and that's a focus all the time, which really plays havoc with a lot of people. And again, it becomes that obsession, you know, with how you're looking. Is it good enough? And do I measure up? Am I good enough? And then the military and veterans do have also additional issues. Sure. You know, military sexual assault is a huge thing, and moral injury, you know, where you actually have people going out and doing things that are against their moral code because that's what they have to do. So there are additional issues that they have with things also. So we are really looking at ways via social media and the web platform to provide a lot more services to veterans and the active military.
Got a lot on your plate, Mary.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, but it is going in the right direction.
Fantastic.
So.
We're glad you're here. White Pine Center for Healing, Mary Machuga, the executive director. Again, all the best. These are, the holidays are not the greatest time to be figuring this out, but people need to.
Yeah, right. And the holidays are very stressful emotionally for an awful lot of people. It's not just fun and games for an awful lot of people. So you're under more emotional stress, and, stress eating, aside from all of the holiday activities that all revolve around food, can be an issue. And all I would say in a nutshell on that is just try to listen to what your body needs. Have some fun with it, but be sure you're getting what you need. And that can set you in the right direction a little bit anyway.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.